Hello there, and this is another episode of the King's Square Reviews covering Reacher Season 3. Another week and another episode of Reacher drops. This week's episode, titled Dominique, is a flashback-heavy episode that sets the stage for why Reacher is obsessed with tracking down Xavier Quinn before moving the story forward. There are some standout performances in this episode, particularly Maria Robinson as the titular Dominique Cole. Now, this is an in-depth review of the episode with spoilers, so if you haven't watched episode 4 of Reacher Season 3 yet, please stop listening to my review and go watch the episode, then come back here. Before diving fully into the review, remember to hit the like and subscribe button if you like my content, and the bell icon to get notified when new content drops. You can also get early access to videos like this through my Patreon. You can find the link for that in the link tree in the video description below. Episode 4 picks up immediately after the end of Episode 3, with Richard Beck and Reacher leaving the site of the DEA safe house where Reacher has removed Chapman Duke from the equation. Beck quickly drops the story Reacher has spun to McCabe over the phone, who approves of Reacher becoming Beck's new number 2. After dropping Beck off at his palatial estate, Reacher makes a trip to Duffy and her partner Guillermo at the cabin they've been holed up in the last few episodes. It's here that Reacher learns Quinn and McCabe are one and the same, which segues into the flashback portion of the episode. Flashbacks have been part of the Reacher series since the first season, so the transition to an extensive exposition of why Quinn is targeted as the villain for this season is kind of expected and necessary. Until we as the audience are given a reason to hate Quinn as much as Reacher obviously does, the conflict between the two characters doesn't have the emotional resonance it needs to feel satisfying. The backstory starts with Reacher working under his mentor, General Garber, on a case involving a man named Gorowski apparently selling off military secrets, which amounts to treason. We learn very quickly through dialogue that this investigation is taking place long before Reacher assembles the 110th Special Investigations Unit that was explored in Season 2 of the show. Garber introduces Reacher to his new subordinate, Sergeant First Class Dominique Cole. Cole, as portrayed by Maria Robinson, is sharp, disciplined, and very observant. She quickly figures out that her presence was just recently revealed to Reacher a few minutes before her arrival. Cole also quickly deciphers the root cause of Gorowski's case as one of coercion, rather than any factors like greed or malice. It's apparent that Reacher takes an immediate liking to Cole because, particularly for us as the audience, we see Reacher pepper his conversations with people with verbal jabs and snide remarks. That's part of his sarcasm and his defense mechanisms. None of that is here in his interactions with Cole, particularly during their first meeting. And when you see Reacher not using his deadpan sarcasm with someone, or he very lightly jabs at them with his sarcasm, he likes that person. More important than her investigative abilities, though, is the warmth that Robinson imbues in Dominique. Cole is able to connect with Reacher not just on an intellectual level with her skills as an investigator, but also on an emotional level between two people who have recently lost parents and have very similar outlooks on the world. As I watched the scenes with Cole unfold, I couldn't help but love the character within the first 5 minutes of her introduction. And that's a credit to the very sharp writing of this episode and the performance of Maria Robinson. Unfortunately, that means that the upcoming tragedy is going to hurt even more. Based on how Reacher has used the past tense when he's been speaking about Cole up to this point in the season, we know she doesn't make it. And that sense of dread fills all of the scenes in these flashbacks as Reacher and Cole soon learn about Xavier Quinn's involvement in Gorosky's espionage. Xavier Quinn is revealed to be a member of military intelligence, which makes him one of the more wired-in villains Reacher has faced in his military career. A rogue intelligence officer with connections in the chain of command has a certain amount of insulation that Reacher and Cole have to battle through. Their investigation is methodically built over the course of the flashback without going too in-depth into all the nuts and bolts of it. But this also includes the introduction of a Syrian national named Safwan. We also learn how Quinn turned Gorosky. Quinn kidnapped Gorosky's 4-year-old daughter and held her overnight just to prove that he could. It's clear by the revulsion on Reacher's face when he learns about this tactic that he immediately doesn't like Quinn and wants to bring this guy down. It also establishes for us that Quinn's MO hasn't changed in the intervening years based on what he did to Zachary Beck's son, Richard. With the impending doom of Cole's fate hanging over all of these flashbacks, there are moments of levity that break things up, which is necessary when you're dealing with these kind of heavy story subjects. Cole is able to keep Reacher on his toes with a snappy comeback every now and again. And you also get the introduction of another character, Private Frasconi, who is clearly harboring a crush on Cole. And this adds some extra humanity to these scenes and interactions, which also leads to a wonderful moment of Reacher, of all people, trying to offer Frasconi advice on how to woo Cole. And that's priceless, because the last person you would ever expect romantic advice from is Jack Reacher, and that just makes it funny. However, that inevitable doom arrives, and it's all based on Reacher wanting to be a good boss. As Duffy points out in between the flashbacks, there are plenty of bosses in both governmental branches and the private sector that would love to swoop in and take credit for the work done by their subordinates. Reacher isn't like that. Instead, he wants Dominique to take full credit for all of the hard work that she put into the investigation, and that includes slapping the cuffs on Quinn herself with Frasconi along for the assist. But when neither Dominique or Frasconi check back in, Reacher starts getting worried. When Reacher sends a text message to Dominique, she replies back with the text, "Sir," at the end, which sends Reacher over the edge because he told Cole in their very first meeting never to call him sir, and she hasn't done it since then. And as Reacher puts it, you never have to tell Cole to do the same thing twice. What we find at Quinn's residence is Frasconi dead on the floor in the kitchen with a gunshot to his back. Earlier in the episode, Reacher had admonished Frasconi for never turning his back on an enemy, even if it is to protect a fellow soldier, because then you just get 2 people dead. Frasconi didn't take Reacher's advice, which results not only in his death, but the abduction of Cole. Reacher eventually finds his way to the remote farmhouse that Quinn has been using as a stash for his ill-gotten gains. Periodically throughout the first episodes of this season, we've seen flashback snippets of a barn door and wind chimes. And now we get to see the full context for that and why that image is seared into Reacher's brain. We don't get to see exactly what Quinn did to Cole over the course of torturing her for information about the investigation. We do see her hanging from some kind of pulley contraption in the barn, and we also see that she is covered in blood and has been stripped out of her uniform. Reacher's reaction to her predicament says volumes. Someone as comfortable with violence as Reacher is doesn't react very often to violent circumstances when he finds himself in them. But here, looking at his friend, Reacher looks like he's about to vomit, and that tells you something about the nature of what happened here. Reacher ends up finding Quinn still on the property as he's trying to bundle away cash to make a getaway. Reacher's able to get the drop on Quinn, who decides he's going to start spreading a load of BS about how Cole was involved in the espionage gig with him until she got greedy. And Reacher's not buying it for a second, simply asking Quinn what is her first name, which, if this is a collaborator, that's something that Quinn should know without having to be prompted. And that leads to the next bit, which, whether or not Reacher is justified in shooting Quinn with the intent to kill him after what he has done to Cole, is something that I will leave to you as the audience to decide. Leave your comments below, but please keep the discussion respectful. Regardless of your stance, Reacher shoots Quinn, lets him fall off the side of a cliff into a waterfall, and assumes between the bullet and the fall that Quinn has died. As Reacher has said many times over the last 2 seasons, and particularly up to this point, assumptions kill an investigation. And you get the sense that this is the case that taught him that valuable lesson. I get the feeling that Cole's death is the reason why Reacher is both protective of and emotionally distant from the other members of the 110th Special Investigators team. I think it also explains why Reacher is so fond of Neely, the former 110th Special Investigator and current private investigator who has helped Reacher out over the past 2 seasons and is also getting her own spin-off show as well, which I'm looking forward to. Anyway, flipping back into the review. With the flashback over and the explanation of why Quinn and McCabe needs to meet another bullet by the end of this season, we are brought back to the present. And after the dark and depressing flashback sequences, the small interaction between Reacher, Annette, and Agnes, Beck's household staff, is a welcome refreshment. Like, it's very clear that the ladies hold Reacher in higher esteem than they did his predecessor, Chapman Duke, but they're also not cutting him any slack. And this also leads to one of my favorite parts of the episode, if not probably my favorite part of the episode, that has some wonderfully classic Reacher lines in it. And that's Reacher teaching Richard Beck how to fight. The fact that Richard asks with a straight face, what if he hurts Reacher with a punch, is just so precious. That also leads to Reacher's wonderful line of, no one looking to hit a guy like you cares about a fair fight. Yes, Reacher's being a bit of an asshole here, but he's also not wrong. And Reacher is being blunt with Richard, but it's also very clear in these scenes that he likes this kid, and he wants Richard to have the ability to defend himself in the future, and he's willing to teach him how to use what he has at his disposal to his advantage, which is the kid's not going to be the strongest guy in the fight, which means he needs to fight dirty and he needs to fight to win. Now, changing gears for a brief moment, I want to focus on Susan Duffy. Duffy being the DEA agent who has put Reacher into this situation at this point. So during the breaks in the flashback sequences, we learn that Duffy straight up lied to Teresa to get her to become a confidential informant. I get the sense that this isn't the first time she's done something like this, and even Reacher and Cole were not above lying to Gorowski during the flashback interrogation to get information out of him about Quinn. The fact that Duffy's lies directly put Teresa in harm's way makes Duffy's quest to find Teresa more of a guilt-ridden act of redemption. Now, if you're willing to excuse Reacher for using deception in his pursuit of Quinn, then perhaps there's room for leniency on Duffy doing something similar with Teresa. This is another one of those very morally ambiguous moments in Reacher that I leave up to you as the audience to decide where you stand and how you view these characters after this point. The ending of the episode ramps up in its final moments, though, and we learn from Zachary Beck that Angel Doll's laptop that Duffy absconded with back in episode 2 has a tracker in it. Now, due to the convincing lie that Reacher has laid out to Beck, McCabe is convinced that whoever has Angel Doll's laptop is responsible for the recent attacks on their business interests. This puts Duffy and Guillermo squarely in the sights of a three-man hit team of McCabe's troubleshooters. Reacher is sent by Zachary to assist in dealing with whoever has the laptop. With no cell signal in the warehouse, Reacher isn't able to reach Duffy as he speeds to their location, and just before the credits roll, McCabe's hit squad arrives with the intent to kill whoever has the laptop. And that's where we smash cut and leave us at a cliffhanger. The fourth episode of the season is a bit of a breather episode from the constant ramp up of the first 3 episodes. We learn more about Quinn and Reacher's animosity, and we get introduced to the fantastic character that is Dominique Cole. We as the audience are meant to root for Reacher, and there are times that his actions are questionable. As the saying goes from Star Wars, this will depend greatly on your point of view. Overall, the episode felt like a good break from the escalating tensions of the previous episodes before ramping back up at the end with that solid cliffhanger leading into next week's episode. So I hope you've enjoyed the review. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button at the bottom if you enjoy these reviews. And again, if you want to get early access to reviews like this, go to the link tree in the video's description and sign up for my Patreon. Have a great day.